Okay, here we are, the final episode of Game of Thrones, Season 6, Episode 10, The Winds of Winter. We are here to break down the big moves that happened. It seemed like we went from one epic moment to another in the episode. And we're here to break down, not just in terms of what happened in the episode, but in terms of the Emmy chances of this show. And we're here with the Gold Derby team. No one talks about Emmys better. Amanda, Daniel, and Marcus. And let's kick off by just starting in King's Landing, where the episode opened with a massive bang. Daniel, you haven't talked to us about Game of Thrones all year. What did you think about the King's Landing's shenanigans of Cersei?
That should have been the title of the episode, King's Landing Shenanigans. I've sort of had mixed feelings about the show from the beginning, and that sort of, there were some in there. It was an amazing kind of set piece. I was a little frustrated that, we have to dial it back to 0 episodes since a gay or bisexual or LGBT character was like horribly mutilated and killed off on the show, which was a little frustrating. But it was the editing was beautiful. It just felt, you could feel every edit towards something big, and then once you see the candle in the fire, you're just like, oh, a bunch of people are gonna die now.
Yeah. Amanda, what did you think? I thought the scoring of that opening scene was incredible.
Yeah, I loved the opening because it was very quiet. Everyone's getting ready for the day. It was beautifully put together. There wasn't a lot of fuss. And then all of a sudden there was a big boom. And the High Sparrow's biggest problem was he would not listen to Marjorie, who told him, we need to leave and we need to leave now. But it was perfect. It was perfect. It was so quiet. The music was the star of that. And even Tommen's, if you haven't seen it, you shouldn't be watching this, but spoiler alert, Tommen's very beautiful, just falling out the window death.
Yeah. I am heartbroken about Marjorie Tyrell's death. I'm devastated. But first, Marcus, how did you find all the big King's Landing stuff that went down?
It was amazing. I couldn't look away. And you're right, the score was just fantastic. And it just kept building and building and building. And how many people died? I mean, that was a lot of people and I'm talking about like main characters that died. The Tyrell brother and sister and their father, the old Maester guy, Cersei's cousin. It's like, what's going to happen in season 7? I mean, they just killed off half the cast.
Yeah, like, maybe not the whole half of the cast of the show, but like a big chunk of the King's Landing people are now gone. It seems like it's just Cersei and Jaime are the only people we see. Oh, and I guess the Mountain, and the guy who created the Mountain. Yeah.
Yeah. And the nun woman who that was probably one of my favorite scenes. So rewarding when Cersei is closing the door and she's like, shame, shame, shame.
Yeah. I think, to me, the Marjorie death is the death that has affected me the most since maybe the Ned Stark death on the show, which could be a controversial opinion. How does the Marjorie death rank in series deaths, Amanda?
Well, it definitely advanced the story forward. So that, while it's sad she's no longer part of the show, it is going to set up a big. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
It's going to set up a big kind of alliance. There's going to be consequences for this happening, like there was consequences when Ned died.
Yeah. Daniel, how big a death was the Marjorie death in the series?
If this kind of death had come 3 seasons earlier, it would have been huge, but it feels like we've been through so many at this point that it's just like, and she went up in flames with a room full of other major characters. So it doesn't feel, the impact on me didn't feel as much. I was a little disappointed just because this is one of those deaths where it felt like, when she said goodbye to Diana Rigg as her grandmother, and she sort of gave her that drawing, the flower, it felt like there was more there. She had more of a plan and more going on that was going to happen, and then the show is just like, nope. So she just, it felt a little abrupt in that sense for me.
Same with Loras. Like he went through this whole season of being imprisoned, and would he apologize or would he confess his sins? And he did, and he got the cut. And it's like all of that was really for nothing because they just killed him off.
Yeah. So now we've got it was Renly who was impaled by a smoke demon. We had Oberyn who had his skull crushed and his eyes gouged out, and now Loras, which is probably the third worst of the major gay deaths, but it was still a little disappointing for that reason.
Yeah, I think the reason why the Marjorie thing, for me, is upsetting is because she is one of the characters on the show that I found the most interesting. One of the characters that, when they're on screen, they're moving the game forward. They've got moves up their back sleeve. They're wheeling deals. You don't know exactly what they're up to. And I like that sort of political side of the show. And I love the way she balanced the sort of the PR sort of type of side of the game with the sort of screwing over the Lannisters and trying to sort stuff out there. So pretty disappointing. Whereas I feel like a Robb Stark and a Catelyn Stark, I was finding them quite boring, the sort of storylines that they were sort of like involved in season 3. So the Red Wedding, shocking and devastating, but this one was like, oh, Marjorie, I was really enjoying her scenes on the show. I thought she was bringing a lot, and now I'm not going to see them anymore, and I'm not going to see what sort of other moves she had waiting in the wings. But I think great from a story perspective. I think great for a moment on the show and a good way to kick things off. And I guess another big death is the Tommen death, which I thought was beautifully done in terms of not over the top, but still very powerful. Just a very sort of quiet moment. I loved how it was Cersei's actions that led to the fulfillment of the prophecy of her children all dying. And I think Tommen is the longest reigning king in the series. I think this episode clocked him one episode ahead of Joffrey. So it's going to be a struggle for anyone to beat Tommen's reign in the show, since I think we've only got 2 shortened seasons to come. What do we think about the Tommen death, Marcus?
That's the death that really got me, because I mean I guess I was never a big fan of Marjorie like you were, but Tommen just had a heart of gold. He was not meant for these people. I mean, he did not fit in with these guys, and when he jumped out the window, I got really sad. I mean, I totally understood why he would do that.
Let's talk this episode in terms of Emmy tapes. To me, there was a clear standout in terms of who has an Emmy tape from this episode to submit to judges. Amanda, what did you think?
This is probably Lena Headey's episode. I can't imagine her submitting anything else. I know we were talking about that last time. What is she going to submit? She doesn't have a tape, and yeah, she's got one now, but I don't think she can win with this. And I just want to say, I know we were just talking about this, but if they really should have submitted, since Diana Rigg wasn't eligible, the little girl who plays Lyanna Mormont, Bella Ramsey, because she was incredible, and she's gotten a lot of press and attention over these past 3 episodes for not having a lot of involvement. So I'm hoping they keep her around next season.
There's no guest actress on the ballot for this show at all.
They should have submitted her.
So it wouldn't have done them any damage. It would have cost them, I don't know, the $100 or $200 it cost to submit someone. That's all it would have cost the Game of Thrones people to put her on the ballot.
And Natalie Dormer, she was in 4 episodes, right? Or did she hit 5?
She had 5.
Okay, never mind.
And she's not listed as a guest actress. So.
First year
not submitted.
first year she hasn't submitted herself. Natalie Dormer usually submits herself, and I thought it was Natalie Dormer's best season. I thought I don't know why she's been submitting herself other years, not to submit herself this year. Real shame. Great performance by Natalie, but such a crowded race, the drama supporting actress. Even just amongst actresses from her own show, it would have been hard for her to break through anyway. Daniel, I agree. It's Lena Headey's tape. She hasn't had a whole lot before this episode. This episode aired the night on the eve of ballots being due. I feel like most ballots were probably submitted by the time this episode aired. Was it too late for Lena Headey, or just on the fact that she's been nominated the last 2 years, was she a lock for a nomination anyway?
Yeah, I think she was pretty much a lock for a nomination anyway. I think she was in again. She didn't even have to show up for the season, and she probably would have gotten in again. You know, it won 12 Emmys last year. It won every other award. After it had that huge sweep, it was a little surprising that she didn't get to go, or he or Emilia Clarke didn't get to go along for the ride. But I do think they're pretty safe in there. So I don't think they have anything to worry about. And Christina Hendricks is out, so there's one slot that's open, so there's a buffer there. So I think she's safe. I don't know that she could win with this episode either, even if she does submit it. It's very subdued. It's very there's not a lot of emoting in it, even though it's a hugely eventful episode for her. If she does win, I think it could come down to the seeing Tommen's body, and then even better for her is the scene with the old nun getting her revenge, because. You know, just for the shame, as she walks out the door and closes it behind her, it's not a big moment in terms of acting. She's not delivering big fireworks, but as a viewer, the satisfaction of that for that character has a lot of impact. I don't think it will. If she wins, I don't think it would be on the strength of the episode, but she could win.
She loses a child. She gets what she wants at the end. She becomes the new queen. I think it's the perfect episode for her. But as we know, episodes may not even matter anymore. I mean, Margot Martindale won for sitting in a coffee shop for 2 minutes. So maybe we're putting too much stock in the episode submission idea. I think she could win with or without this episode.
Is there a chance? Because I agree that Christina Hendricks is an open slot. Game of Thrones is going to do just as well. Is there any chance that you see a Maisie Williams or a Sophie Turner bump one of the actresses that got nominated last year? Because in some ways, those two actresses had their strongest stuff before this episode, which aired at the end of the ballots, sort of pretty close to being due. Amanda.
This is where it's going to be tricky. It's not just Game of Thrones you have to worry about. It's also Downton Abbey's final season, which probably means Maggie Smith is coming back. And that's when you've got to start playing around with, does Joanne Froggatt come back, or can Maisie Williams or Sophie Turner bump her out? So it gets a little complicated trying to get a third actress in. If there were only 2 Game of Thrones spots, and we said Emilia Clarke's in, then yeah, I would say that either of those 2 would be far more deserving this year, this go-around. But they're children, and we know they don't usually nominate children. And that's going to be their biggest hurdle to come over.
Yeah. Daniel?
Actually, I'm sort of disappointed by the fact that Game of Thrones has such a large ensemble cast and so many good actors, but even though it's gotten a number of nominations every year, it's generally the same people get in. Dinklage, Headey, Emilia Clarke has gotten in twice, Diana Riggan, guest actress, though not this year. So it seems like they're watching the show enough to pay attention, but they're not paying attention enough to know that actually this season, Maisie Williams and Sophie Turner were the two I put in over even Lena Headey and Emilia Clarke, and I would love to see them both get in. I would love to see Maisie Williams, especially because she's not on the ballot for Doctor Who. She should be a guest actress nominee for that as well this year. If you haven't seen her in that, she is dynamite. Watch it. She has a great arc in that, but just for both of those things, and for the amazing work she did this season, and Sophie Turner playing. I mean, oh my goodness, poor Sansa, just the arc she's gone through after the controversy of her being raped last season. I feel like the show rebounded from that and really said, okay, season 6 is going to be the season of the women.
It really was.
Moved on from victimizing them in every episode to Sansa saves the day in the Battle of the Bastards. Maisie Williams, Arya, kicks ass and takes revenge, avenges her mother and her brother at the end of this episode. And Cersei takes the crown. It felt so much like, okay, we're sorry we punished the women for 5 seasons. We're gonna give them some kick-ass victory here. So I definitely think women were the strongest of the characters and of the actors this whole past season.
And by the way,
if
you want to vote for Maisie Williams and Sophie Turner, you can vote in our Gold Derby TV Awards. We just opened those a couple days ago, so go vote for them there, because I don't think the Emmys, as much as they deserve it, I don't think the Emmys are going to nominate them.
They don't like kids. They just, frankly, they don't like children.
Just to be fair, Amanda, Sophie Turner is 20 years old.
Yeah, but seriously, she started on the show when she was like 14.
Yes.
So and the same thing with Maisie Williams, who's been submitted as, I don't know how old she is now, but she was probably about 13 the last time. If you're not 30, you're gonna have trouble in these strong categories.
Yeah. But I think it is interesting, and I do actually believe that sometimes the Emmys and who they nominate can be unpredictable, and like last year, seeing a Niecy Nash get nominated, obviously some voters were paying attention to something, and she was able to break through. A show that is as widely watched by this, and probably in the last year's drama series when are getting watched by quite a lot of Academy members. Who knows what performances sparked with certain members. And I could see a surprise from this show in the acting nominees, particularly on this side of the fence, whereas I don't think on the male side there's this clear, amazing performance that might overshadow Peter Dinklage's on the ballot. We could talk about Kit Harington maybe when we're talking about the North, but I think let's imagine you had Emilia Clarke get nominated and she submits the episode where the Book of the Stranger, I think it is. I could have that name wrong. The one where she burns down the Dothraki temple. Lena Headey gets nominated. She submits this. Maisie Williams get nominated and she submits the... Oh, sorry. My alarm's going off. Maisie Williams...
King's Landing is about to explode.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
we
the
haven't
timer.
talked about Carrie Van Houten. She could still be in there. They submitted her.
Okay, yeah. Let's say Maisie Williams gets in. She submits the episode where she last week's episode, where she the No One, and Sophie Turner gets nominated. No, 2 episodes ago, sorry. And Sophie Turner gets nominated. She submits last week's, and the Red Woman gets nominated, and Van Houten, and she submits maybe the premiere or something. Which of those 5 tapes would you vote for if you were an Emmy voter? Let's say they're all the nominees. Which one is the strongest tape in your guys' minds? We'll start from Amanda and work our way down.
Well, first of all, I think Sophie Turner should have submitted the one where she reunited with John.
Okay, say she submits that one then, Amanda. Like, everyone's put their best foot forward in your mind.
I would go with Maisie Williams. Honestly, I think she has the best tape out of all of them. Mm-hmm. Personally, I think that ending and the way she handled that faceless man, whose name I can't remember now, with Needle just going, "I'm Arya Stark and I'm going home." Mm-hmm. Even though we didn't get to see the battle, it was still incredible. Mm-hmm. So she's my pick.
I'd probably go Maisie Williams too. It's hard to think about these things after the fact because all the storylines, there's so many different storylines in any given episode, so I can't remember how much screen time. If I had to watch over again to remind myself how much screen time each actor had, it might change, but it would almost definitely be Maisie Williams, with Sophie Turner maybe a close second.
Marcus.
Mine would actually be Lena Headey, first place. Second place, Maisie Williams. Third, Sophie. fourth, Emilia Clarke, and fifth, the Red Woman.
Yeah. Why Marcus? Why is
Because
Lena the best?
she was, I mean, the character of Cersei was kind of neutered this year. She didn't do a lot until the finale. Really, she did nothing. But she overall, if I'm a voter, I'm not going to look at one specific episode. I'm going to just look at the entire breadth of their performance. She really did deserve it last year for the Walk of Shame episode. So that would come into my mind, and I would say, well, Uzo Aduba won last year. Let's give it to Lena Headey this year. So
on my question of who had the best tape this year out of all of them, you're saying Lena Headey because she had the best tape last year.
No, she had a really. I think you guys are underplaying her performance in the finale because it was really subtle, but it was absolutely brilliant.
We know they don't go for subtle. They don't usually go for that. And I think Maisie Williams might just have a little more screen time than all of them, if we were to add up the actual minutes.
Maisie Williams, in some ways, was a bit subtle too, though. It's not like she's got a massive screaming or crying scene. It's like a very, it's very action heavy. But in terms of like performance, like the battle at the end, she just cuts off the wick of the flame. It's not like she's screaming at the top of her lungs, throwing plates across the room.
Right.
But I would say my answer to that would be I do still think probably Emilia Clarke has the best episode out of everyone. I think that scene where she burns down everything and the groundwork that's sort of laid the scene before, I think she has the most powerful scene, and it sort of has a strong monologue in a different language leading up to it. I think Emilia Clarke has the best tape. It's funny, none of us said Sophie Turner. However, I do think in some ways she had the most to do over the course of the whole season than any of those other characters. So let's just quickly bounce around to the other places in Westeros. We've spent a lot of time in King's Landing, and that's because of the big explosion and Lena's massive performance. But let's go to the North, or Winterfell. Let's go to Winterfell, see what happened there. So I guess after last week's big week in Winterfell, this week we're just tying up loose ends. Kit Harington is now King of the North. What did we all think of? What do we think of that? I know Littlefinger did not seem the biggest fan. He did not seem happy when everyone was saying Kit was King of the North. Amanda.
Well, his season ended better than it did last year, but
yes,
it wouldn't have taken much. But I did like their scenes this week, especially with Sansa and Littlefinger, and she pushed him away this time and was like, "That's a nice picture," but she kind of, I think, knows he's a good backup plan because he's not going anywhere. Plus, he also is smart enough to know that there's no way the Lannisters are going to take him back now after he helped crush Ramsay Bolton. As far as being named King of the North, we're saying nothing happened. We learned something really big this week, which is we at least know Jon Snow is Lyanna's son, if not Rhaegar's. So, and I would say for Bran, knowing something and being able to prove it are two very separate things. So he's going to have to be able to prove this, which is going to be interesting to see going forward next season, is how is he going to be able to do that?
Yeah, very much so. Daniel, what do you think about the North going-ons?
Well, it's interesting, the flashback. It's one of those things on Game of Thrones where, I've watched every episode of the show, but I don't do homework before every new season starts, so I've forgotten 80% of the things that have happened. I didn't understand the significance of that flashback until I read about it the next day. It's like, okay. Because I had no idea. It's like, he's the baby, and that has some significance for some reason. So I didn't really understand that at the moment. It's interesting. It could be exciting going forward. I'm kind of remembering, wasn't there another Baratheon bastard somewhere around?
Yeah.
still alive? Because we haven't seen him in a couple seasons, have we?
He escaped at the end of season 2, I believe.
On that boat.
On the
He's still-
boat, Davos struck him out.
Yeah,
It's
so
2
we,
or 3.
America.
I thought it was 3.
Maybe 3. It could have been
Yeah.
3. It was 3. It was 3. I think you're right.
so we've got a Baratheon bastard out there. We've got a potential Stark Targaryen child with Jon Snow now, and we've got the Targaryen heir with Daenerys. So there's still a handful of people who have like a legitimate like blood claim to the throne. So it's kind of, I really hope they do bring that other bastard back, just because it feels like a big thread.
Yes. I agree. What do you think, Marcus, about the North, Jon Snow king, Littlefinger rejected?
It's great, and the Davos scene. Finally, we see the actor who plays Davos, really giving a strong performance. I'm really sad he's not nominated or submitted on the ballot. But that was a great scene. Did you guys want him to kill her, the Red Woman, or are you happy that she's still alive? Because I kind of feel like her story is over. She brought Jon Snow back. What else is she going to do? She's kind of been humiliated in front of the king.
If you remember, I think it was season 3 when she got Gendry, the Baratheon bastard. She said to Arya, "We'll meet again." So I think that's why she's still alive. Why she was sent south. So we know, at least kind of in the River Runs area, you've got Arya, potentially Brienne still,
The Hound,
and now potentially again the Red Woman. So that'll be kind of interesting to see how those kind of collide next year.
Yeah, I think after all the transgressions of this show and all the big stories and stuff, like that sort of what happened to the Red Woman wasn't like huge. I'm like, oh man, this is the worst thing anyone's ever done on the show, and there's been no consequences for her. She has to die. But yeah, it was pretty shocking what she did to Shireen. So like, if she'd been killed over it, I wouldn't have been too upset either. And I'm not. Yeah, she's not my favourite character, so I don't think I was too invested in the decision that John made either way.
She made a good point when she's like, the parents agreed to this. Like, all she did was suggest doing it, and they're like, okay, well, maybe the mother didn't. But Stannis sure did. He's like, burn my daughter.
Yeah.
And there's also the fact that, I'm not saying that, take a life, give a life balances the scales or anything, but if it weren't for her, despite doing that despicable thing and other despicable things, like I mentioned before, the smoke baby killing Renly way back when, Jon Stark is alive, or Jon Snow is alive because of her, which led to the Boltons falling. So all of that comes as a result of her behavior, of what she did. So the fact that if John had turned around and go like, oh, you killed a little girl, well, off with her head, it would have been like, yeah, well, you did resurrect me. So how about just child and don't come back.
Yeah. I think it was the thing that frustrated me about the North storyline was the Jon Snow being king of the North, because I really feel like it was Sansa that should have been running things in Winterfell. Jon Snow almost lost the battle for Winterfell last week by his own sort of emotional response to Ramsay's killing of Rickon. And I really think that was brushed over this week by what I would say is a North that is in some ways quite good, but maybe less progressive in terms of female leadership than maybe what we're seeing happening in other areas of Westeros at the moment. So I was a bit disappointed. I think for different reasons, similar to Littlefinger, thought it really should be Sansa running the show up there.
Yeah, I'm kind of okay with Jon Snow being the king of the North, because I feel like he sort of Inspector Gadgeted his way into it with the way he bungled that battle last week until Sansa. So I'm okay with Sansa could be the brains and the actual the strength behind the scenes, and let him be the face of it, because we've all seen how well once you're the king or the queen, you've got a target on your back, and all like 90% of them have died up to this point. So it's like, okay, I'll hang back and keep, you know, the Stark name in her back pocket, you know, when she can maybe use it. I hope they don't sow in any rivalry between her and Jon, like, you know, like she tries to take power and he, you know, they clash. That would be a little gross. They spent so much time separated. This family's been separated for so long, and they get back together, and then to fight for power, it just feels like they would both lose sympathy at that point.
Well, I don't think enough people know that she was the one who got the Knights of the Vale. I think that's kind of what probably prevented it overall. Because at one point, John's like, I have mom and dad's room set up for you guys, so for you, because you really should be in charge.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah. I think the one other thing, the one storyline we haven't touched on yet, obviously other than Sam making it to the library, the big moment of the season, the big library reveal, has been the Daenerys coalition. The giving Tyrion the hand of the Queen. It seemed like this episode was designed for hashtags. Hashtag hand of the Queen. Hashtag winter is here. Hashtag Queen Cersei. I don't know. Like, it seemed like just like a lot of stuff was built around hashtags. But I think Cersei giving Tyrion hand of the Queen. The Tyrells and the Martells coming on board and getting on those ships and sailing for Westeros.
That was Varys.
I love Varys.
Yeah, Varys doing his things. And I think the one big loser was Dario, who had to stay back at Marine and miss out on this inevitable, what is going to be exciting, at the very least, march to Westeros.
They should just cut to him in season 7, you know, as the big battle is taking place in episode 9 next year, as it usually is, or whatever. It's a shortened season, I think. You know, they should just cut back to him doing paperwork in Marine.
Looking at a picture of Dany and crying.
Yeah. Just filling out tax forms and and just keeping Marine afloat.
So if this isn't Peter Dinklage's episode, is it episode 2 where he frees the dragons? What do you think, you guys? What he
it was 2. It was 2.
Do you think he could get snubbed for Kit Harington? This was obviously Kit Harington's year, not just on screen but off screen. Everyone was talking about Jon Snow this year. I have both getting in at this point, but I could see a scenario where Kit gets in and Peter gets snubbed.
Kit Harington
will get snubbed.
Yeah, Kit Harington could come in, but Peter Dinklage doesn't get snubbed in any circumstance. I think he won this award last year on a straight-up popular vote because his episode was nothing last year, and his season, it was like his least eventful season because he spent most of the season just trying to get to Marine and Paris last season. So he didn't really have a lot to do last season. He won strictly on basically a popular vote, and so I don't see that there's any way he misses out on a nomination. And at this point, I don't see him losing again because of the voting system.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing you've got with this situation with Daenerys is you've got the Targaryens, Greyjoys, Martells, Tyrells, like, all coming against, pretty much it looks like Cersei and Jaime are the only 2 people left for them to take the throne from. I'm sure they've got some soldiers at their disposal too, probably a bit less after that massive explosion. But I think that's, like, it looks like, and I've said this for a couple of weeks this year, it looks like things are looking too good for Daenerys. She's also got the Dothraki on side as well. Like, it looks like it just set up so well for her to just come in and take that Iron Throne, and I can't imagine it going that well.
Right. Where do you think Jon Snow's going to come into this? Like, is he going to side with Daenerys, or is he going to side with King's Landing?
He's going to side with Daenerys. I eventually, I think they're probably going to have to figure out that he is a Targaryen in some sense, and then what happens between him and Daenerys, we'll see.
I could see him and Daenerys clashing, but I do not see him joining Team Cersei in any scenario. Like, there's
But
no
she's
way.
really on her own. She really has no one else that's going to come to her side.
So the
No,
Lannisters better have a big army.
Yeah.
They
we
probably
don't even
do.
know
They
if
probably do.
Jamie. We don't even know if Jamie is on her side at this point
I think
because
he is.
he
I
does
think
not
he
know.
is.
He got there and basically saw her crowned. He doesn't know what happened.
He's in love with her.
Well,
I don't think he cares what happened.
but
Killing
if
your third child could end that love.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
I don't
that
know.
connection with Brienne, who has of course been Sansa's protector all this time, and he's been captured by the Starks and spent a lot of time with the Starks. Yeah, I'm not so sure it's so clear cut that Jaime stays with Cersei, especially because now that she's queen, it's not like she's going to take him on as king.
I don't know. I feel like he killed one. He didn't look after one of their kids well last season in the final. She didn't do a great job of one of her kids this season in the final. I think it's a 1-for-1 scenario with the
He didn't
kids.
kill her fiance. I mean, he let somebody kiss her on the mouth. He didn't. That's different than letting your kid watch an explosion with your uncle and your wife and.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, okay. So anyway, there we go, guys. That's a good, I think, chat about Game of Thrones. I have 2 questions for everyone to ask. Who made the best move this episode in the game, and who made the worst move this episode in the game? Amanda.
Worse, High Sparrow.
Okay. Yeah. No. Great. Yeah.
Dumb, you should have listened to Marjorie.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You killed a lot of people. Best move in the game. I think it's going to be I would have to say Daenerys because she has a very good set of people behind her. So when Varys went to negotiate that deal on her behalf, things have worked out pretty well for her. The explosion came at a great time for her.
Yeah. Daniel.
Actually considering what we've talked about her lack of allies at this point, I might have to say that the worst move was Cersei. She took the crown, but she blew up half of King's Landing to do it. She drove her own son to suicide. No one likes her. She's alienated the Stark. She's alienated. She's in the way of Daenerys. Who's making alliances left and right. So really, she's got the crown, but that's kind of all she's got at this point. Although she's Cersei, so she can make a lot out from a little. She's always going to be more formidable than she appears. Best move, I'm going to go with Arya. I just feel like her getting back to the mainland, and us not having to watch her spend 12 episodes on a boat to get there, and avenging her mother and brother and getting that much closer back to her family. That's going to strengthen her family, having her back on board. Hopefully we'll see that next season. So yeah, I'm predicting big things for Arya. I don't think she'll be queen, but I think she will be a huge asset to whoever rules. So
The Dexter of Westeros.
Yeah. I honestly, because mine ties in with Daniel's a bit, go now and say I agree with Amanda. High Sparrow worst move, and I agree sort of with everything you've said about Cersei, Daniel, but I'm going to give her the best move because I just think she was able to get the throne. She was able to get the thing that so many people, and if she doesn't mind about her son, she takes aside the personal toll that's taken. I think in terms of the game, she's gotten to a position that very few have in this game, and she was able to get into that spot. However, I think she set herself up badly. So I'm conflicted about Cersei, but just on results from where she's at the end of the episode, I'll go with her. Marcus.
Yeah, you guys have kind of said mine. I was gonna say Arya made the best move, but I'll say Varys actually, because I think it was Varys' idea, right, to go find allies. I don't know if Dany was involved in that conversation.
He left before she got back, so yeah.
Right, so very, very good move on his part, and he went across that ocean very, very fast because he came back, and then I don't know. I saw something on Twitter where they said they're not really dealing with time periods this year, which is really great. So I think Varys gave the best move. Worst move? I don't know. Walder Frey?
Yeah,
He ate, he ate, he ate his own children.
Yeah. There you go. So there we go, guys. We've broken down Game of Thrones. I'm sure we'll be having an Emmy chats, more chats about the show and what we feel about it and who's got the best Emmy chats and stuff like that. But I think that was a nice recap of the season final. And feel free to keep talking about this in the forums at Gold Derby. Make your Emmy predictions at Gold Derby. Who do you think's going to get in and stuff like that? Thanks for watching.